You're watching Newsroom on SABC News. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg here in South Africa. My name is Eben Janssen. The show is live and it's broadcast from our studios in Auckland Park. We're also streaming live on YouTube as we speak, ready with the whole show then available on our YouTube channel all of the time. Today we get an update on the latest talks in the mining sector that's threatening the South African economy. South Africa is also tightening its immigration controls, and then surprisingly later, Cape Town is now the most congested city in South Africa. But let's start with our top stories. Ten people were burnt beyond recognition when a heavy truck collided with a bus and a light vehicle last night. 34 people were seriously hurt and another 6 are in a critical condition. The injured were taken to nearby hospitals in Mbombela. Investigations into the accident are underway. Talks to end the strike on the Platinum Belt continues. Mineral Resources Minister Newsroom will today engage once again with platinum producers after the parties failed to reach an agreement yesterday. Meanwhile, AMCU President Joseph Mathunjwa says his union's 5-month-old strike in the sector will continue until a settlement is reached. And AB de Villiers became the 8th player to be named South Africa's Cricketer of the Year when he received the award for 2014 at a Cricket South Africa banquet in Sandton last night. Cricket South Africa Chief Executive Arun Lorgat said AB's statistics are sheer class and speak for themselves. De Villiers was also named Test Cricketer of the Year, was recognised by his peers as South African Players Player of the Year, and by popular vote of the public, South African Fans Cricketer of the Year. Mineral Resources Minister Newsroom will today continue to engage platinum producers after the parties failed to reach an agreement yesterday. Representatives of platinum producers Implats, Amplats and Lonmin, as well as other stakeholders, will again be locked in a meeting with the minister in Pretoria.
The office of the mining minister and the epicenter of one of the most decisive post-democratic wage negotiations. The office was bustling, mining bosses and labor shuttling in and out. Fevered consultations have been taking place, but precisely what has been agreed to and what hasn't is not known. Unions and business remain tight-lipped. AMCU's leaders traipsed across several provinces. Here, they met local shop stewards.
The leaders of our country, the government, the trade unions, must see to it that in the future there's no such a thing as a strike, because the economy of our country is suffering.
AMCU wants a strike-breaking agreement, inked, dotted and signed, and seemingly are singing from the same hymn book as Minister Ramatlhodi. Rare praise for any minister.
He's open-minded. He's hands-on. He understands the issues, the dispute before him, and I think he is trying his utmost best to see to it that the strike is settled. Always when parties pull their side and be objective and dealing with the issue, not bypassing it, there must be a settlement. Strike cannot be forever.
Platinum producers have lost 20.9 billion rand. Workers have lost almost half at 9.2 billion rands in wages.
Now, SABC economics reporter Mongeni Mutu has been tracking the meetings with the minister and, well, the story really since the beginning of the week. He joins us now on the line. Good morning, Mongeni. Are you with us?
I'm with you, Eben.
Just give us the latest on these negotiations. Are we confident or are we expectant of a breakthrough at some stage?
Well, it's really hard to say at the moment, Eben. The negotiations are still ongoing at a very frantic pace. They are not easy. They are quite tough. We heard yesterday that AMCU had actually put forward now their own proposal, because up until yesterday, the parties have been negotiating a proposal that was tabled by the minister himself, Ramatlhodi, in the talks last week. So now what's on the table now, what is being discussed, is AMCU's own proposal. What is contained in there, we don't know. All we know is on Monday, AMCU negotiators, the technical experts that have been working with AMCU in the talks, they said, and they made it very clear, that they don't have a flexible or a wide mandate in the talks. They have a rigid mandate. They even went on to say that unlike the NUM, which is their rival, which normally goes, the leaders goes into talks with a wide or flexible mandate, they don't, because they're a different union. Their members are quite steadfast and rigid in terms of their demands. So one can only assume that what they have put forward as their own proposal is more or less within the range that they've been fighting for all along, which amounts to about an increase of 1,800 rand a month over the next 4 years. Maybe if there is any compromise, it may be a compromise like we saw earlier on in the talks where they were demanding 12,500 immediately, but now they changed and said they would accept it over 4 years, saying, okay, fine, give us 12,500 over 5 years. The difficulty with that is the companies have always maintained such an increase is not affordable to them. So whether we are close to any breakthrough at this point, we don't know. Employers went back yesterday to go through and consider AMCU's proposal. They are going back to the minister today to give their response. We just have to wait and see what happens.
Bongeni, are the parties involved, are they aware of the devastating effect that the strike is having on the economy, but then also in the lives of those people on the Platinum Belt and then wider business in the entire sector around Rustenburg and these towns? Are they aware?
They're definitely aware, Devin. There's no way. I mean, the impact of the strike is unmistakable. The effect on the economy is dire. Everyone knows that. The effect on the lives, not only of the striking miners, but on the lives of the communities in the Platinum Belt is quite dire as well. I mean, we've seen a gift of the givers going there to try and feed people over there because people are starving. So the impact is unmistakable. But at the same time, Joseph Machuzwa, earlier on, about a few weeks ago, when he was asked about this, the impact on the mine makers, he made it very clear that it is a concern, but this is a struggle. They are in a struggle for a better life, and I mean, they're not compromising. Yesterday, after he went over and did the rounds in Rustenburg, he was heard or quoted in some of the reports on radio stations saying that he has met with the workers. They look fresh. It's like the strike has just started, and they are resolute. They are still prepared to continue until there is an agreement or a favorable settlement. So it's a very tough situation, of course, but as to whether the impact of the strike or what it's causing is putting any pressure on, especially AMCU, to compromise even further, that's really questionable at this stage.
Thank you very much, Mbongeni Mutua. He's going to keep us updated throughout the day. He's on his way to Pretoria right now, where the minister will be meeting with all stakeholders as they try and resolve this 5-month-old strike. Now, our top story, 10 people have been burnt beyond recognition in a road accident on the R40 between White River and Hazy View in Mpumalanga. A heavy haulage truck collided head-on with a bus when it tried to overtake. Another light vehicle was also involved in this accident.
Of the vehicles that were involved in the accident. 10 of the deceased were passengers from the 3 vehicles. 34 of them sustained minor injuries and 6 were seriously injured.
The cause of the accident has not been established as yet, since investigations are still ongoing. But witnesses had this to say.
The truck caused the accident as it was trying to overtake the bus. A small car came through.
The Department of Community Safety, Security and Liaison has resorted to naming and shaming those who caused accidents on Mpumalanga roads in a bid to reduce road carnage. But fatigue and human error are always to blame.
Our roads, you can see, They are in good condition. There's nothing wrong with our roads. I think the main problem is a human error.
Traffic was delayed for more than 3 hours as emergency personnel tried to recover the bodies and assist the injured. Spepile Gnene, SABC, White River, Mpumalanga.
Well, let's take a look at some of the front pages around the world this morning. In the United States, still a lot of criticism around President Barack Obama's decision to swap 5 Guantanamo Bay detainees for the freedom of an American soldier. Then the Wall Street Journal reporting on the Syrian elections. President Bashar al-Assad was declared the victor in a controversial vote, giving him a third 7-year mandate at the helm of that country. Then in the United Kingdom, it's all about the Queen's speech. Well, sort of. A page boy for the Queen of England fainted during a speech yesterday at the state opening of Parliament in the Palace of Westminster. This happened when the Queen was already 9 minutes into her speech. Now, let's have a quick look at what you are talking about on social media. At SABC Newsroom is where you can send those tweets to. Ion Engelbrecht this morning says, "Good morning. If you don't recognize me, it's because I'm in the form of an ice cube." Brrr, Cape Snow. Yes, it is very cold. South Africa is in the grip of a cold snap all around the country. Mark Robson says, "The calm before the storm. Hashtag cold front." Yes, cold is on its way into the weekend here in South Africa. Tiani says, "The best element of surprise is a backup plan. Bracing for the cold front." Yes, you're going to have to get the heaters out this weekend. Michaela Passmore says, "Where is the cold front everyone is talking about in SA? Did it pass me?" No, it didn't pass you. We'll get it a little bit later today, tomorrow, and into the weekend. Then Reino Galdenes says, "It's raining, it's pouring. The old man is snoring. Went to bed, bumped his head, couldn't get up in the morning." Well, there's a bit of poetry in the morning. Thank you, Reino, for a little bit of, the light entertainment there. Of course, the story is South Africa is bracing itself for the onset of the first big chill this winter. Temperatures are expected to drop significantly over the next day or so. Flood warnings are also in place in Cape Town, where heavy rain is expected.
This area is prone to flooding. Residents are worried about the next few days, and low-lying areas will feel the pinch.
From last year, there was a flood here. People are running away. There was no place to stay. People, each and everything that they're having in the house have been damaged.
We always have problems with rain. Water always comes into our houses, and even now, it's already started. So we are worried about the heavy rains that are still coming.
The cold spell is set to linger.
Due to the heavy falls in places, one can still experience some localized flooding. And of course, we're looking at some possible snowfalls on the mountains.
Disaster management officials are on high alert.
Well, we've got a graphic that we'll put up for you. The weather is mainly the result of a strong cold front set to hit the country from the west, and it will be accompanied by gale force winds, says the Weather Service. Temperatures in Gauteng are not expected to top 20 degrees over the next 4 days, while severe rain and localized flooding are being predicted for parts of the Western Cape, from Cape Town across the western half of the province. Now, before we take a short break, have you ever thought of purchasing a GoPro camera, or does the thought of attaching a camera to your head just sound silly? Well, it might just have become a safety security must. We found this clip on YouTube this morning of a guy who was riding his bicycle in Somerset West when he was stopped by 2 armed men. The camera attached to his head led to their prosecution. Let's take a look.
That's all I got on me. I promise. That's all I got on me, I promise you. I won't mess around, I swear.
not the smartest criminals I've ever come across. If you see a camera above the person's head, that's also a valuable piece of equipment. I'm sure you would want to relieve that person if shopping is on the agenda. Anyhow, those two gentlemen who so kindly showed their faces on camera are now behind bars in Somerset West in the Western Cape. Good on you for having the GoPro there, sir. All mountain bikers must be having a smile on their faces here in South Africa. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll have more on Newsroom right here on SABC News.
Nissan Qashqai, urban proof, mastered. Save up to 49,000 Rand on the multi-award winning crossover. Nissan, innovation that excites.
United States President Barack Obama has expressed sadness over the shooting at a U.S. Army base in Fort Hood in Texas. A soldier opened fire on fellow service members at the military base, killing 3 people and wounding 16 others before committing suicide at the same post.
I want to just assure all of us that we are going to get to the bottom of exactly what happened. Any shooting is troubling. Obviously, this reopens the pain of what happened at Fort Hood 5 years ago.
We urge you to stay with us here on AM News on Channel 404 on DSTV with myself, Elvis Preston.
And me, Kendo Makamati.
We'll be back at the top of the hour, so do not touch that remote.
That's AM News, daily at 10 a.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom. Recently, the country's newly gazetted immigration rules have been at the centre of a heated debate, with industry regulators calling them unconstitutional. Some of the major amendments state that a person cannot change from a visitor's visa into another type of visa in South Africa and will have to apply in their own country of residence. New changes to certain applications also mean processes can become extremely cumbersome. Now, to talk to us about the challenges these new rules pose to visitors and immigrants, we are joined by the chairman of the Forum for Immigration Practitioners South Africa, Gershon Mosiani. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Morning, sir. Morning to your viewers.
Firstly, tell us, what are some of the major changes that the Forum is worried about?
The first major change that we've been complaining about, it's obviously the repeal of Section 46, but it's not on the regulations, but it's in the Amendment Act. The other type of concern for us is the requirement that a spousal visa, if you are an applicant for a spousal visa, you must show that that relationship has been in existence for 2 years. And the fact that spousal permits are classified now as visitor's visa.
Yeah.
Therefore, if you apply for a spousal permit in your home country and come into South Africa, you cannot change from that spousal visa and get employment. The other issue is the responsibility that has been placed on other departments, such as the Department of Labor and DTI. For an example, if you're applying for a work permit, the Department of Labor has to issue a letter making certain recommendations to you. And that means that Home Affairs is abdicating its duty on the work permits to the Department of Labor.
Can some of these new rules and changes, can they be called unconstitutional though?
Yes. For an example, what I've just mentioned to you now, our Constitution states very clearly that in a spousal relationship, each party has a constitutional right to live together. They've got a constitutional right to seek employment. Now, if you've got a visa that prohibits that right, that amounts to being unconstitutional.
What about South Africa's battle against porous borders? We see all around the world, especially in Europe and so forth, we see countries tightening immigration controls because they're having problems of employing their own people in that country and so forth. We do have a problem with a lot of illegal immigrants in South Africa. How do you then step up this fight against this?
What people must understand, the regulations are not clamping down on people jumping the border. There should be enough police officers, there should be enough immigration officers at our borders to enforce these regulations. But these regulations are not addressing that issue. The only issue that is addressed as a security concern in these regulations is that biometrics are mandatory now. In that when you come into South Africa, you have to submit your biometrics. FIPSA or anybody else that is complaining about these regulations has no problem with that.
Now, the Department of Home Affairs have come out and said that the amendments are in the best interests of South Africa's security. You're saying that is not true?
That is not correct. How can it be in the best interest of security if you are scaring away investors?
How are we scaring away investors in this space?
Let me give you an example. We've got people that have been in South Africa that are on business permits. In terms of the new regulations, those people have to employ a staff complement of 60% being South Africans.
Yeah.
Now, already if you have a business, you've invested 10 million rands, you don't have a staff complement of 60% being South Africans, what must you do? If you fire people and try and employ 60% of your staff being South Africans, you will be acting against labor laws. That is counterproductive. That cannot be an issue of security.
But surely South Africa and South African business have to look after South Africans, and that surely is the intention of this.
The intention is bold, but the way it is being implemented, it is too hastily. For an example, if a businessman, as I've mentioned, has been here for 3-5 years, how do you expect him within 3 days to comply with that, within the first 12 months? That is practically impossible.
What about things then, fines and bans for those who overstay? Are that in line? Are you happy with that? That's in line with international practice?
Before we get to international practice, one needs to point out that we are a constitutional democracy. Everything that we do, we cannot do things like other countries. For an example, in Zimbabwe, land grabbing. We cannot do that. We need to look at what our constitution says. And now, in terms of the new regulations, if you have overstayed with less than 30 days, you are declared an undesirable person for 12 months without even giving you an opportunity to plead your case. Therefore, you are guilty until you prove yourself that you are innocent. That cannot be constitutional.
Well, we could continue with this conversation for the rest of the morning because it's such an interesting. But thank you for joining us. This is the chairman of the Forum for Immigration Practitioners in South Africa, Mr. Gershon Mosiani. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Now, residents in low-lying areas on the Cape Peninsula bracing themselves for heavy rains and possible flooding. The Cape Town Weather Office says it expects temperatures to plummet below 10 degrees in some areas. A heavy cold front with rain, strong winds and high seas is moving across the province.
This area is prone to flooding. Residents are worried about the next few days, and low-lying areas will feel the pinch.
From last year, there was a flood here. People are running away. You know? There was no place to stay. People, each and everything that they're having in the house have been damaged.
We always have problems with rain. Water always comes into our houses, and even now, it's already started. So we are worried about the heavy rains that are still coming.
The cold spell is set to linger.
Due to the heavy falls in places, one can still experience some localized flooding. And of course, we're looking at some possible snowfalls on the mountains.
Disaster management officials are on high alert.
In Cape Town, ranked as the most congested city in South Africa and the 31st most congested in the world. According to satellite navigation company TomTom's 2014 traffic index, congestion levels in Cape Town stands at 27%, while Johannesburg is at 25%. This is mainly because of the congestion on Cape Town's highways. TomTom, South Africa's manager, Dan Hendricks, joins us in the studio this morning. Thanks for joining us, sir.
Good morning.
Please give us your facts on the survey, on the congestion in Cape Town. A lot of people can't get their heads around it, I suppose.
Well, we have looked at the travel times in South Africa. So with the support of millions of TomTom customers, we capture anonymous travel time information. And over the years, we have built the world's largest database of historical travel times. So then we look at the travel time, and the increase in travel time in a congested period compared to the travel time in a non-congested period is giving us a percentage, and that we call the congestion level.
Yeah.
So out of the report, we saw that the congestion level in Cape Town is the highest of all. We've seen that the shortcut, the side roads or the secondary roads often turn out to be, much worse than the main roads. And as well, we saw that the South Africans spend an average of about 10 working days in traffic every single year.
And in a city like Johannesburg, we've now seen the whole furor around e-tolls and so forth that's been going on the last year or so. Has the highways, had they had an effect in Johannesburg, for instance, in bringing down the congestion a little bit, in your opinion?
It's hard to say in this report, because we have actually compared the 2013 full year with the 2012 full year.
Yeah.
So the e-toll only kicked off at the end of the year, so we probably might see a big impact of that next year.
Did you base your findings on only traffic congestion on freeways, or are you looking at congestion in city centres as well? I know Cape Townians are always complaining that they can't find parking in the city.
Well, we look at every single road in South Africa, and I think that is also the strength of this report, that we don't only take highways into account, but we also take the secondary roads into account. And that's why we can look at the congestion level on both highways and non-highways.
Yeah.
And then, for example, you see that in Cape Town, the congestion level on the highways is much higher, which actually increased the congestion level overall.
How much hours would you say then a city like Cape Town is losing with these people just sitting on the highways?
Well, we have calculated that with a 30-minute commute, people will lose an average of about 11 working days in traffic per year. But 30-minute commute is not a whole lot. So you can imagine if you have a little bit of longer commute, what kind of impact it will have on your travel time and your expenses.
Absolutely. And then you talk about expenses. How does this then translate into wear and tear on vehicles and transport costs and petrol costs, especially?
Yeah, I think the calculation is easily made. If you look at the amount of time you spend in traffic, you do it times your salary. So we can calculate the total cost or the impact on the economy of being stuck in traffic. So I think we all need to try to find a solution for the congestion and bring it down, and we will all benefit from it, both companies and individuals.
What kind of recommendations would you then put forward for a city like Cape Town and Johannesburg? Well, at 25%, Johannesburg is also quite congested if one would look at it.
Yeah, it's funny because the 25 and the 27%, that's the average. You can see that in the morning in Cape Town, the congestion level is 71%. It means that if you travel in the morning, you need to add 71% to your travel time. Now, to be able to tackle the congestion, I think it's important to already find out where is the congestion. And that's exactly what the report is doing. It is telling us where do we have the congested areas, and if we have that, then we can work together with traffic authorities. We can look into, diverting traffic from these areas to non-congested areas, and then we can bring down traffic in the congested areas. We can divert it to other regions, and we will bring down traffic for all.
Now, these diversions of traffic off the highways and so forth, we see in Johannesburg, the secondary roads, they really suffer, and often they're not in good condition. How does that play out?
Well, the fact that the congestion level on the secondary roads is higher will probably also be a result of, maybe the condition of the roads.
Yeah.
But that's something we see on a global scale, so it's not really typically for South Africa. Now, the biggest problem on top, for example, for Cape Town is that it has, it is bordered on the one side by the sea as well. So to get access or to, to enter the city center, your options are much less than, for example, in Johannesburg.
Well, thank you for joining us. Very interesting that in the mornings you've got to put, almost double your travelling time in a city like Cape Town. The Cape Townians wouldn't want to agree with that, I can tell you. Thank you for joining us this morning. That's Dan Hendricks, who is Tom, South Africa's manager, giving us the heads up as to why Cape Town is the most congested city on the roads, that is, here in South Africa. Let's take a look at what you are talking about on social media. Of course, we will love your interactions. The Springs Monster. Well, this is a story that's really caught the imagination here in South Africa. To bail or not to bail is the question. Do we really know our neighbours and what horror lurks behind their doors, or do we really want to know? Daphne says, ignorance is bliss sometimes. Gloria Maloka says, but some people are heartless. Springs Monster, yes, that is the case, but we'll have to test that in court, my dear. Melissa says, listening to Family Friendly, Springs Monster has no idea that when conditioned through fear, you learn to survive. Freedom is not even a thought, if I got that right. G says, Springs Monster must not get bail. I think, what an evil man. Yeah, well, it is a horrific story. Peter says, we never run out of monsters in this country. Now there's the Springs Monster. Peter, all over the world we have monsters, my friend. It's not only in South Africa. Everywhere in the world we battle with people. Well, my opinion, I think there's a lot of untreated mental illness on our streets, and we should do something about it. But let's take a look at what's on our Facebook page. Of course, today you can read more about the Luandle residents who've been allowed back to the land they had occupied after they were evicted earlier this week. There's also more on the negotiations between platinum producers and mining union AMCU, and you can watch a clip of the 70th anniversary of the D-Day landings that happened today in 1944. Yes, a group of World War II-era aircraft have flown to France from southern England to mark the 70th anniversary of the D-Day landings. D-Day was the biggest seaborne invasion the world has ever seen. More than 150,000 Allied troops landed along a 50-mile stretch of occupied French coastline to fight Nazi Germany. It was originally scheduled for 5 June 1944. A total of 6,000 ships and landing craft were involved, delivering troops to 5 beaches along a carefully selected stretch of the Normandy coast. You are watching Newsroom on SABC News. We'll be back after a short break.
SABC, sharing 20 years of inspiration. The Mantango Cultural Village is a large family homestead with 16 huts, each of them with its own specific purpose.
My responsibility, it is taking care of the family. As far as cleanliness is concerned, I have to make sure that I keep the home as clean as possible every morning when I wake up.
That's Kaleidoscope, Sundays, 5:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back. This is Newsroom on SABC News. Let's take a quick look at our top stories. 10 people were burnt beyond recognition when a heavy truck collided with a bus and a light vehicle last night. 34 people were seriously hurt and another 6 are in a critical condition. The injured were taken to nearby hospitals in Mbombela. Investigations into the accidents are underway. Talks to end the strike on the Platinum Belt continues. Mineral Resources Minister Nrako Ramatlhori will today engage once again with platinum producers after the parties failed to reach an agreement yesterday. Meanwhile, AMCU President Joseph Matundra says his union's 5-month-old strike in the platinum sector will continue until a settlement is reached. And AB de Villiers became the 8th player to be named South Africa's Cricketer of the Year when he received the award for 2014 at a Cricket South Africa banquet in Sandton last night. Cricket South Africa Chief Executive Haroon Logart said AB's statistics are sheer class and speak for themselves. De Villiers was also named Test Cricketer of the Year, was recognised by his peers as South Africa's Players Player of the Year, and by popular vote of the public, South African Fans Cricketer of the Year.
I discover it with you. Connu? The 2010 FIFA World Cup will be organized in South Africa.
If you are a South African, you will never be able to forget that day. Now, the 2014 World Cup is 1 week away. Football's most prestigious prize will be staged in Brazil from next Thursday until the 13th of July 2014. Football fever is in the air and temperatures are set to rise even more around the world as die-hard soccer fans vie for their teams to pick up the World Cup. 4 years ago, South Africa hosted the tournament as teams from all over the world descended for the first time on, well, African soil for the soccer showpiece. To recap the 2010 South Africa World Cup and look forward to next week, Brazil, we are joined, well, from our sports desk by football expert, Sifiso Lamara. Good morning, Sifiso. Thanks for joining us, man.
Morning, Evan. Thanks for inviting me.
Time moves on very, very fast in this world. We're now talking Brazil 2014. It seems as like yesterday that we spoke about South Africa 2010.
Yeah, very true. It was just a few years ago when we hosted the biggest soccer spectacle in the world. It's just unfortunate that this year there won't be Bafana Bafana in Brazil. But we will watch the other 5 African countries, how they fare in the tournament.
Well, just for you, because Bafana Bafana is not there, we're going to look back at that first goal. Shinpiwe Chabalala. Let's take the goal that made the World Cup for us.
It's here to break at pace. Modisa turning it through. It's on here now. The goalkeeper's beaten, and South Africa have their first goal. Shinpiwe Chabalala, on the day he wins his 50th cap, has given South Africa a glorious moment. Wonderful ball through. The goalkeeper at first advanced.
Yeah, glorious moment, and it's a goal that I'm surely for one will never ever forget. But just tell us, South Africa's not at the World Cup. Yes, we're going to support the African teams. What's the mood like in Brazil at the moment?
Well, unfortunately, you know, like you said, we're only a week away from the opening ceremony as well as the first match of the 2014 tournament. But the demonstrations, you know, in Brazil have overshadowed everything that is happening. Yeah. We saw a few years ago when the home team went to their World Cup base, you know, rather than receiving a warm welcome as the home team, they were booed by people who have been protesting for the past few weeks. And I think, you know, that's what overshadowed everything. But hopefully, when the first ball gets kicked, then you know what, everybody will forget about what happened leading up to the event, and all eyes, so everyone in the world must start enjoying football.
A lot of people are focusing on the protests and say, yeah, they're having problems and so forth, but what people are not talking about is that there are some areas where all the work has not been done, has not been completed.
It's very unfortunate, you know, 7 days to go. Some of the venues, you know, are not 100% complete. You know, we also had our own criticism here back home. Yeah. But, you know what, compared to Brazil, I think we were far better. Yeah. I mean, a few days ago, they were testing the venue that will host the opening ceremony as well as the opening match. Yeah. One of the stands did not receive the certificate, safety certificate. Yeah. So you can imagine, you know, FIFA, wherever they are, they must be worried. That's a 68,000 seater venue. And if, you know, safety concerns here and there, I think it's a problem.
Safety concerns will be frowned upon, I think, and it will be heartbreaking for them if one of the venues are closed and not used for the World Cup. But let's talk about the football itself, because that's really what it's about. Brazil must go into the tournament as probably outright favourites after their performance at Confed last year.
they are the favorites to lift the trophy, they are the home team playing in front of, their passionate fans. But, playing at home at times, it has its own disadvantages. People sometimes, they are over-demanding. So, I think if they win their opening match, I think that will lift the pressure somehow from the team. But you can imagine what's going to happen if, say, they fail to win the opening match, or even if they draw, like it happened here with us back in 2010.
What are which are the African teams that you expect to go well? You think Nigeria will show up quite nicely? Ivory Coast, they may be a bit old that side?
Well, if you look at the 5 African participants, I think Ivory Coast, they are the team to watch, the likes of Didier Drogba, Yaya Toure. But, they don't have a good track record when it comes to the World Cup. Yeah. This will be their 3rd consecutive World Cup appearance. You look at a team like Cameroon, they are the most experienced African team. Yeah. This will be their 7th World Cup. And remember, African teams, the best that we have gone in the tournament is to reach the quarterfinals. I mean, we all saw what happened in 2010 when Ghana, in injury time, they were supposed to make history and Suarez blocked that ball. They were going to make history to become the first African team to reach the semis.
That was the best save of the World Cup, that Suarez made that left-handed save in the top corner to keep Ghana out of the tournament. But let's quickly talk about the other teams, which is shaping up really as the one time where continental Europe will be looking that they can, outside of Europe, put in a performance. A team like Germany, they must be going there with lots of confidence.
I think no European team has ever won the World Cup outside Europe. So, things are heavily stacked against European teams. But you can't write off the likes of Spain and Netherlands. I mean, we saw the type of football that they were playing here in 2010. They are the defending champions. And definitely a lot is expected from that team led by Andres Iniesta.
Well, Sfiso, thank you for joining us. We can't wait for the World Cup to start. It's going to be broadcast on SABC. We will have all the games, and it's at a very comfortable time in the evening. So everybody will be watching this World Cup. Thanks for joining us this morning.
It's a pleasure, but 2 in the morning, I doubt.
Yeah, no, that might be a little bit late. Now, our producer, Anine Dormal, has put together a few World Cup facts that you might enjoy. Thanks, Anine.
Has begun, and with this just 7 days to go, we take a look at some of the things you might not have known about the 2014 World Cup. Let's start with a look at the official TV opening of the tournament, which is an animation that shows the beauty of Brazil and all its different stadiums.
Well, time for us to take a look at what's been happening in the online media space, well as the social media front. Of course, joining me is SABC's digital news production editor, Bongi Mohale. Good morning, Bongi. Thank you once again for joining us.
Morning, Evan. Lovely to be back.
It's been a big news week. It seems as if sports news have sort of been quite the flavour that people have been in when we talk about what's been happening online. Tell us about Gordon Iggesund and how people have responded to this.
Yeah, the Gordon Iggesund saga. Well, what we've done on the website regarding the non-renewal of his contract is obviously the story that we received from our TV and radio services. And we've also have an interview that was done with the sports writer Thomas Grenade. He was on SFM's AM Live, and he was basically saying, you know what, does it look like there'll be that much of a positive legacy by Gordon Eggerson, that there was lots of room for improvement, and he's sort of throwing his weight behind Carlos Queiroz. Anyone can go and have a listen to this interview. But also very, very interesting, of course, is what our users are now saying who should be replacing him, because we expected that when his contract wasn't renewed, we'd have an announcement of who the new coach would be, but this obviously didn't happen. So people are throwing their weight behind Shakes Mashaba or Steve Compella. And if you go there onto the website, onto our social media platforms, you get, it's very, very good banter. You know, people are very, very interested in this. I think it's also the sort of thing whereby they're also voicing their views on how SAFA has perhaps maybe kind of dropped the ball here a bit. Because yet again, we're at a point whereby the world's eyes are on the Soccer World Cup. We're not attending. Instead, we're sitting here with a big fat question mark over who's going to be the coach of the national team.
Yeah, a lot of traction, I think, for Steve Compella, who's a guy who's done really well on the local front, I think. But let's move on to your work over the weekend. At the Comrades Marathon, there was live streaming. How did that go?
That went very, very well. I think people enjoy this sort of thing. The thing with the live stream is if you need to move perhaps from your TV, sometimes with our TVs welded to our walls or whatever the case might be, you know, you can't really take it along. But if it's online with the stream, wherever you go with your PC, with your, not with your PC, with your, perhaps your tabs or whatever the case might be, your phones, you can take it along, have a look at what's happening. What was quite remarkable was a crash that was captured. It was captured by our cameras. And I think it was so unexpected because if you look in the background, you see that the people are just running along, you know, it's pretty tame, pretty quiet, it's coming along like you're not really expecting anything remarkable to happen. And there comes this white car out of nowhere. These people just escaped really by the skin of their teeth. It's a miracle. Nobody was actually hurt. And our cameras captured this. You know, it's one of those things whereby just at the right place, at the right time, something completely unexpected. And it's like, wow, it's gone like viral when it was first posted, I think, by a private individual. And we've since put it onto our platform so people can go have a look at it there, have a look at what's been happening. So it's not just the running, it's the running away from. Yeah, it was an amazing clip. I actually watched it live, and just before that, ironically, they had an interview with a senior manager at the Road Accident Fund, who are one of the sponsors of the Comrades, and then the accident happened, which was quite funny. But World Cup kicks off next week. We had a whole World Cup segment. What are we doing on our digital platforms to bring it home? We are bringing it all together on the website. But we've got a special report. We've got all the team profiles. We've got the group profiles. We'll be staging it as it's going through. You know, we've got all of this going on. People can go have a look at who are the highlight players that they can have a look at. And we're going to be updating it all the time. Anything that has been on either TV or radio with regards to the World Cup, you can come back and have a look at it on the website just to relive the pleasure. Now, let's move on quickly. You're launching some technology and science wraps. Just tell us, before we run out of time, tell us about that, because that's very interesting for me. Very, very, very interesting. What we've launched is the tech and science wraps that we do each week now. The science wraps basically highlights of environmental and science news. For instance, we've got local and international stories that we have a look at. We have Northwest medical practitioners which are working using science to improve maternal care. And on the international front, one very, very interesting story is the unveiling of the Earth Day Global Selfie Mosaic, which I think will be quite fun to have a look at. With regards to the tech wrap, we have got this story on a US millionaire who's using Twitter to give away cash. So he posts like, what is it, clues and pictures onto Twitter, and people have to figure out, you know, where the money has been put away. He's trying to get rid of all his millions. I saw he picked up like 200,000 followers in a day or something. I mean, who would give up the opportunity? Unfortunately, it does not involve us South Africans, so we can only wash and let our mouths water at the possibility. Well, whatever, man. You've got to work for your money in this life, I suppose. Yep. What else are you doing? Samsung S5 reviews, all that sort of stuff's on the website? Yes. And the thing I'm interested in is the shark migration is due to satellite tracking. Are you making that app available? Yes, we've got the mapping of this migration. It's one of our highlights that people can look forward to for our next science wraps. And also with the Samsung S5 review, which is a very, very one that's close to my heart because I just upgraded to one and I want to have a look at what this phone is actually capable of. So that's something that our users can look forward to for our next tech wrap.
Well, that's a very interesting one. I'm definitely going to follow that because, you know, sharks are some of the most interesting animals on this planet. Thank you for joining us, Bongi. Always nice to have you with us, and you always bring us such interesting content. Thank you.
Pleasure being here.
Well, that's where we have to wrap it today. It hasn't been a vintage day on Newsroom, but hey, some days are better than others. Broadcasting live from our studios in Auckland Park in Johannesburg between 9 and 10 a.m. every weekday morning. The show repeats at 2 in the afternoon with a rebroadcast at 5 a.m. the following morning. We also stream live on YouTube at that time with a whole show then available on demand on our YouTube channel. This is SABC News. You've been watching Newsroom. We love it in the morning.
The Swaziland Tourism Authority invited Kaleidoscope on a media tour of what has become known as the Little Switzerland of Africa, the Kingdom of Swaziland. The Mantanga Waterfall is one of Swaziland's best known and most accessible waterfalls, as it can be seen within 50 meters.
That's Kaleidoscope, Sundays 5:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Risk, adrenaline, excitement. Are we talking extreme sport here? For Paul Esterhazen, we're talking about the things that attracted him to stockbroking. In November of 1998, Paul and his then business partner listed their company in the JSE.
Our stockbroking business had been sold into a financial services company, and we had tentatively earmarked a payday of some 42 million rand for selling our business into there.
The allure of making millions led the duo to take bigger and bigger risks.
We'd begun taking some positions in the marketplace which were speculative without sufficient funding, and they started going against us. In order to make up those losses, we continued to trade with a view to trade out of it. And ultimately, in finding a gap in the marketplace where the inspectorate systems were not closing us down, we committed fraud and theft.
Despite his open rejection of faith and religion, Paul's conscience got the better of him. He arranged a meeting with the directors of the parent company to disclose what was happening.
I knew that I had to make a call and put a stop to that, knowing full well from the day that we did that I would face a jail sentence. Yeah, not easy to contemplate when you have 3 daughters, a strong marriage, you're apparently at the height of success, and you know that when you do pull the plug on this one, you're going to go down so quickly.
In April 1999, the company was shut down. The prospect of jail was inevitable.
It took 40 months before I was sentenced. For 40 months, without fail, standing up and looking at myself in a mirror and saying, "Paul, you're going to jail."
Paul's wife Diane and their daughters faced the prospect of being separated from him for a long time.
In the minds of teenagers, they have a view that prison is about an abuse of your rights, that you will be raped, that you will be punished, that you will be living in conditions which you may not be able to survive. I had no real means of being able to reassure them that I would get through that.
In his desperation, Paul set out on a rocky path in his quest to find God.
When we landed up in trouble, my wife Diane said to me, "Paul, let's go to church." And we went to a local church, and I stood there and said, "Here am I, Paul, the hypocrite." I stood there and listened to people singing worship songs. And I just thought, I can't come here in time of need and draw strength from this when I don't believe in it.
Thanks to his eldest daughter's encouragement, Paul decided to persevere in his pursuit of faith.
I didn't do this so that I wouldn't go to jail. I didn't do this because it would somehow protect us from the shame and the humility of what I had done in our business. It was just the revelation and the understanding that God revealed himself to us as Christ. And in that, I knew that that evening in April 1999, when I stood up from being alongside my wife Diane and I walked down to the front and I knelt with Dr. Rex, I just knew that that would be, for me, the ability to actually understand God's grace in my life.
Knowing that he would be separated from his family for a long time, Paul refused to let his business failure be the last memory his wife and children would have of him. Using his passion for schools and their communities, he started a fundraising initiative that became known as the My School Initiative.
It was an initiative that was launched in the absolute desperation of where we were, I'd lost everything. We rattled it ahead, and today my school as a business continues and raises more than 1.5 million rand per month for school communities.
However, nothing could postpone the inevitable.
You cannot prepare yourself for jail.
After 40 months of waiting, Paul was finally jailed.
The awful separation that happens in your life, separated from those whom you love, from those whom you want to be with and those whom you care about, is a pain beyond what you could ever design for yourself.
Facing an 8-year sentence, his greatest concern was for his wife and children.
Prisoners who are currently serving time will readily tell you, you will lose your house, your home, your family, your friends. They will all give up on you. And I just resolved, when they told me things like that in the prison, I said, God knows what will be taken and what will be given.
He promised to write to them once a week, as he assured them that the situation was in God's hands.
We all knew that God had his hand on us, that God was watching what we were doing, and I could say to them and go with the absolute in knowing that you give this to Jesus when it gets too much for you. That peace that comes from that knowledge just trumps and overrides all of what we ever factor in as human beings.
Due to good conduct, Paul's 8-year sentence was reduced to 35 months.
25th of July, my youngest daughter's birthday. It will be 3 years since I've been released from prison.
It's been a 10-year journey since the beginning of his ordeal, and today, Paul Esterhazen is a changed man.
Prison time was a time of me also saying, how do I make a difference in the lives of others? How do I witness for God? And just said, every day has some purpose.
Believing that his life has so much more meaning now, he wants to share his experiences to glorify God.
I believe that there are business lessons to be learned from what we had built in our business, where we had summited and where we succumbed because we didn't have the correct accountability structures in place, not just within the business, but within who we were. And the lesson therein for so many businessmen today is that they have to have that moral accountability as an integral part of what they want. For me, it's finding God and Jesus to be our answerability.
Molweni, nda, dumelang, assalamualaikum, namaste, goeiemorgen, Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome to AM News here on SABC News Channel 404. The Basic Education Minister, Angie Motshekga, has dismissed the renewed Limpopo textbook saga as a storm in a teacup.
They have to collect books the previous year. And it's actually the very principals, if that's what they told me was true, there'll be ill discipline because they were supposed to have collected books so that state doesn't buy books because you don't buy the same books every year. A book is supposed to last for 3 years. So they are supposed to collect them so they don't run short.
That's AM News, daily at 10 a.m. on SABC News.
It's 10:00 hours Central Africa time, Thursday, Donderdag, 5th June 2014. Mulweni, assalamu alaikum. Namaste, buongiorno, goeiemorgen, nda, jumbo Africa. And a very warm welcome to AM News on SABC News Channel 404. You have to stay with us as we bring you only the latest news from here and abroad. We are broadcasting live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg, South Africa. My name is Elvis Preston, and I'll be your host until 12:30. With me is our sports anchor, Kendall Makamate. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Elvis. How do you do?
Very well, and you?
Very good, thank you. We're talking football today. In fact, we're talking FIFA World Cup. We're looking at warm-up matches from Ivory Coast and El Salvador, as well as Argentina and Trinidad and Tobago. And we look at those highlights, as well as tickets for the opener, semis, and finals, all sold out.
Well, what do you make about that? That's Kendall with your sports news a little bit later, but right now, let's take a peek at your headlines. Mpumalanga traffic authorities are trying to clear the road on which 10 people were burnt to death in a fatal accident involving a bus, a truck, and a car last night. AMCU President Joseph Matunjwa says he sees no end to their 5-month-long strike until they reach a settlement. And AB de Villiers has earned himself 4 major accolades at the Cricket South Africa's award ceremony last night. Those are all your headlines. Our top story this hour. Mpumalanga traffic authorities are trying to clear the road on which 10 people were burned to death in a fatal accident involving a bus, a truck, and a car last night. 35 people were injured, 5 of them critically. The accident happened on the R40 road to the Kruger National Park between White River and Hazy View. A heavy haulage truck collided head-on with the bus when it tried to overtake. Another light vehicle was also involved in the accident.
The wreckage of the vehicles that were involved in the accident. 10 of the deceased were passengers from the 3 vehicles. 34 of them sustained minor injuries and 6 were seriously injured.
The cause of the accident has not been established as yet, since investigations are still ongoing. But witnesses had this to say.
The truck caused the accident as it was trying to overtake the bus. A small car came through.
The Department of Community Safety, Security and Liaison has resorted to naming and shaming those who caused accidents on Mpumalanga roads in a bid to reduce road carnage. But fatigue and human error are always to blame.
Our roads, you can see, they are in good condition. There's nothing wrong with our roads. I think the main problem is a human error.
Traffic was delayed for more than 3 hours as emergency personnel tried to recover the bodies and assist the injured. Spepilek Nene, SABC, White River, Mpumalanga.
Residents in low-lying areas on the Cape Peninsula are bracing themselves for heavy rains and possible flooding. The Cape Town Weather Office says it expects temperatures to plummet below 10 degrees in some areas. A heavy cold front with rain, strong winds and high seas is moving across the province.
This area is prone to flooding. Residents are worried about the next few days, and low-lying areas will feel the pinch.
From last year, there was a flood here. People are running away. You know? There was no place to stay. People, each and everything that they're having in the house have been damaged.
We always have problems with rain. Water always comes into our houses, and even now, it's already started. So we are worried about the heavy rains that are still coming.
The cold spell is set to linger.
Due to the heavy falls in places, one can still experience some localized flooding. And of course, we're looking at some possible snowfalls on the mountains.
Disaster management officials are on high alert.
Now stay tuned. Philip Hawkins will give you some more details a little bit later in the program on your weather forecast to find out what's the temperature like in your area. The inquiry into the IEC chairperson Pansy Tlakula's fitness to hold office is expected to continue in the electoral court sitting in the South Gauteng High Court in Johannesburg today. Tlakula is fighting against an application by some opposition parties to have her resign her position. Lawyers for Tlakula have denied their client manipulated the procedure and the procurement process for leasing the Commission's headquarters in 2009. Reports by the Treasury and the Public Protector found that the tender process was neither fair, competitive or transparent. Tlakula's lawyers argue she did not intentionally break the law. They argue her decisions were made honestly and with the Commission's approval. Chief Justice Mogoeng is sticking to his guns. A week ago, the Chief Justice caused a stir by suggesting that religion should be allowed to influence the law, or the laws rather, that govern our lives. Yesterday, at the Constitutional Court in Bloemfontein, he held a media briefing to clarify his point.
Neither apologetic nor repentant, insisting he has every right to raise whatever concerns he may have, whether it's about the freedom to divorce, indulge in adultery, or promiscuous fornication.
There are issues related to these that I need to highlight. Bearing in mind that what is sought to be achieved here is the common good of all in our pluralistic society.
An unashamedly devout Christian, he is adamant, though, that he is not about to impose his faith at the expense of the Constitution. But he's not about to sit down idly either, nor shut up, and not anytime soon.
We know of many deaths that have taken place as a result of tensions and misunderstandings flowing from adulterous relationships. We know about that. And most of the marriages affected by adultery have ended up broken up. They've ended up in divorce. Children were not properly looked after. Their studies seriously affected, either because the collective support they require from their parent is no longer available. So I identified adultery not as the only cause, but as one of the major causes of the family breakdowns that our society has to contend with.
Stirring public debate may be a good thing, but as the Bible says, brother, first remove the splinter from your own eye and you will see clearly.
As the Chief Justice, you do have a responsibility to sort out the workings of our justice system. From the time you took over, would you say, or how would you rate your own performance of yourself? Would you say that you are raising these issues now because you have done everything you could have done on your part to sort out some of the mess that you may have found our system in when you took over?
One of the things that required urgent attention when I took office was to empower judicial officers through judicial education. An institute had been in place meant to train judges for 2 years. No training had taken place, and within 3 months of my taking office, training was taking place for judges and magistrates. 2, one of the major concerns that we have had was the institutional independence of the judiciary, because there is always the possibility of manipulation there by those who control your budget and those functions. And we have achieved a lot in that regard.
Blessed is the man who perseveres under trial, the Bible says. But whether the justice system or South Africa will receive the crown of life from the Chief Justice's provocation remains to be seen. Vuyo Mvoko, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Meanwhile, the incoming Fifth Parliament looks set to clamp down heavily on absenteeism. Now, members may lose their seats or be fined if they are absent from parliamentary meetings without permission.
The second day of the orientation of MPs focused on discipline. This has been a long-standing challenge in Parliament.
It's usually what I call the Thursday afternoon syndrome. It happens on a Thursday afternoon. When you go to Cape Town International Airport, you can convene a sitting of the House there.
Parliament adopted an attendance policy in the previous term. Under the policy, MPs may be fined 1,000 rand for missing 3 consecutive committee meetings. For each day absent, MPs who miss house sittings, study tours and other parliamentary forums for 15 consecutive days without reason will lose their seats.
Let us not fall foul, or don't be the first member of Parliament after these rules were adopted by the previous Parliament, the Joint Rules Committee, to be highlighted as the individual who have lost the seat.
The new attendance policy will be implemented once a biometric system has been put in place during this term. Pulilani Philip, SABC News, Parliament.
Now some sad news. Former President Thabo Mbeki's mother and anti-apartheid stalwart Ipianet Mbeki remains under the close supervision of doctors at a private hospital in East London. The 98-year-old struggle icon was admitted a week ago.
Mbeki was rushed to hospital more than a week ago. It's not clear what the ailment is, but back at her rural village of Ngwani in Dujwa, her absence is felt. Mbeki has an unrivaled passion and hands-on approach in matters such as rural development. Residents who work with her on several community projects such as sowing, beadwork and farming wished her a speedy recovery.
For some of us, it was even difficult to support our families. But the day we met this elderly woman, we managed to support our families and send our children to school. We are praying to God that she recovers.
Mama Mbeki must recover very soon. She must come back and come and encourage us and assist us as she usually did. We are waiting for her to come back and assist us.
Her family is at her bedside. Unatipingwase, SABC News, Dujwa.
News from further afield. Boko Haram militants are taking over villages in northeastern Nigeria, killing and terrorizing civilians and political leaders as the Islamic fighters make a comeback from a year-long military offensive aimed at crushing them. Meanwhile, mothers of the girls who were abducted by the Islamist group says the government is not doing enough to find the girls.
The girls were snatched from the remote northeastern village of Chibok near the Cameroon border on the 14th of April by members of Boko Haram. Esther, whose daughter was kidnapped, says the suffering was intense.
My daughter was kidnapped. I just feel like killing myself or just disappear from the world. It will be better for me. Honestly, I'll miss my daughter very well. I'll miss her very much. But I pray that one day Almighty will open heaven and give us and send down His glory upon them. Then one day, maybe I will see her. And I have that hope that I will see her one day.
More than 20 of the parents of the girls, alongside some of the girls who escaped from their abductors, listened to speakers attempting to comfort them as the hunt for the girls continues.
Some are even having psychological problems, calling her daughter all day and night that her daughter is coming. Unfortunately, her daughter is not with her. It had affected her internally and even physically. Some of them don't eat because they don't go to school, you know. They are living in the village closer to us. They want their daughter back, no assistance from anywhere. The government said that they are working. Today, Monday, is the 7th week. If really they are working, we should have at least 1 or 2 girls.
Much of the anger among protesters and a Bring Back Our Girls Twitter campaign that helped fuel it had been directed towards the government for failing to protect the girls. The relatives are undergoing therapy sessions, which are being funded by non-governmental organizations.
Now that's your news for now. Now I'm sure everybody in this country is waiting with bated breath to find out what's happening with the weather forecast. So good morning to you, Mr. Philip Hawkins. Cape Town, there is snow, there is rain, there's floods expected. What is going on?
Very good morning, Elvis. Yeah, snow, rain, floods, and this is all the result of low pressure systems, and those are bringing a lot of cold fronts with them. This is the season's possibly worst cold front so far, and a lot of people were asking during the summertime and leading up to this winter whether it was going to be a really cold winter. And while we couldn't necessarily say that at the time, I mean, it's showing its face now, isn't it? There's a lot of snow forecast all the way from the Cape, the Western Cape Mountains, all the way through the Drakensberg Mountains for today. We've seen all the warnings brought by these cold fronts as well, things like veldfire dangers ahead of them, and then behind them, of course, very cold conditions, a lot of rain, things like that.
So you would suggest it's time to take out all the winter woolies and get them ready?
Well, if you're in the Western Cape, they should be ready and waiting by now, because it's already really cold there. But yes, you're in Gauteng, and it's definitely approaching, so it's going to get cold.
That's Philip Hawkins. He's going to take you now through to tell you exactly what you can expect wherever you are here in South Africa.
Well, very good morning. Let's take a look at your weather forecast. Now, over the last 12 hours, our satellite imagery shows a lot of clouds developing all the way throughout the western parts of South Africa and indeed extending into parts of Botswana as well today. Now, that's the result of a low pressure system which is bringing with it a cold front, and that has now moved and is moving over the central regions of South Africa today. It brings very, very cool conditions behind it, and of course, a lot of rain. Isolated thundershowers forecast throughout most of South Africa for today. Scattered and widespread thundershowers moving further southwest, but towards the northern parts of southern Africa, partly cloudy to mostly clear skies are present there. Now, as we move into tomorrow's weather, we can see the power of a high pressure system as it moves onto the land area of southern Africa. It clears up this entire system all the way over the western parts of southern Africa. Now, what that's going to do into tomorrow's weather for the eastern coast, it's still going to remain isolated thundershowers and partly cloudy conditions, but cool conditions remain even though that cloud has disappeared in some areas. Let's take a look at today's weather in a little bit more detail. Now, mild to cool temperatures are forecast all the way throughout the northeastern and central parts of the country. Very cool in some areas, with Kimberley expecting only a high of 11 degrees, but towards the coastal regions, much, much warmer. Richards Bay at about a 25-degree high. Still not hot there, but at least warm. As we move further southwest, we begin to see much cooler conditions. Now, PE is at a maximum of only 16 degrees, rather. East London at 18, and Cape Town a high of only 14 degrees today. So very cool temperatures here. Also, a lot of wind expected there today and a lot of rainfall. Keetmanshoop's at 14 degrees. Cool temperatures persisting throughout the entire western parts of Namibia, and a little bit of rain as well. But moving further north, that cloud and the rain begins to disappear. We're seeing Windhoek at 19 degrees and clear conditions persisting throughout the day. Moving into Botswana, a little bit of cloud cover moves into the area, and that is originating both from the northwestern areas and extending in from the southeast, and that's the result of that cold front and the low pressure system drawing moisture into the area. Quite warm conditions in Maun, 28-degree highs forecast there. Temperatures in the higher 20s as we move further east as well, and Zimbabwe can expect a warm day there. Mostly clear to clear conditions are present throughout the central and eastern regions. Just a little bit of cloud cover persisting in the west. Towards the coast now, a much warmer day is forecast all the way throughout here, with temperatures between 31 and 29 degrees. Partly cloudy skies are forecast in these areas as well, with only a little bit of rain further north of Lichinga. Towards the island regions, we're also expecting a very warm day with quite high humidity remaining. Mostly clear to clear skies have been forecast, with Anjouan at 30 degrees there. A very sunny day and only low-level cloud cover expected into the afternoon. Prolan and Mahe, though, can expect very cloudy skies throughout the day. We are also expecting heavy rainfalls in some area and quite high wind speeds there too. Very quickly, we'll take a look at Madagascar now. A 28-degree high is forecast for Thomasina, with mostly cloudy skies. The cloud dissipates as we move further south, and warm conditions persisting in Mahajanga. Now, that's all the weather that I have for you for now, but don't go anywhere.
That's the weather doctor, Philip Hawkins, with some bad news for you here in South Africa. It's going to be chilly, and I want to go to the islands, but coming up in business. African energy ministers and more than 30 U.S. companies in the energy and petroleum sector will meet in Ethiopia. You have to wait for details after the break.
SABC News celebrates Africa.
Time now for your business news. UMCU President Joseph Matunjwa says he sees no end to their 5-month-long strike until they reach a settlement. He told mine workers in Rustenburg that they've steadfast in their demands. Matunjwa maintains that the government's proposal contained nothing new. Mineral Resources Minister Nwako Ramatlhodi will today continue to engage the platinum producers after the parties failed to reach an agreement yesterday. UMCU is demanding a 12,500 rand basic monthly salary. The longest strike in the South African mining history has cost both platinum producers as well as the workers over 29 billion rand. Meanwhile, the court case regarding UMCU's planned strike in the gold sector will be heard in the Johannesburg Labour Court today. During the last court sitting in March, lawyers and counsel for the Chamber of Mines and UMCU requested the court for a postponement. Now, UMCU is expected to explain why an interim interdict declaring the strike in the gold sector unprotected should not be made permanent. In January, the Labour Court issued an interdict that prevented UMCU from going on strike in the gold sector. Eskom senior executives will forego their annual bonuses this year to cut cost in the light of the 225 billion rand revenue shortfall the utility is expected to experience for the next 5 years until 2018. Interim Chief Executive Colin Majila says the top executives have acknowledged the financial constraints that the power utility is facing. The board has welcomed the move. Now, in 2012, the National Energy Regulator of South Africa, NERSA, approved the tariff increase of 8%. Eskom says this left it with a funding gap. Machila says the revenue shortfall cannot be achieved by belt tightening alone, and it's important to move forward towards cost-effective and reflective tariff urgently. Now, the power utility also says it's in discussion with the National Treasury to find a long-term funding solution. Eskom says it's aware of its obligations and will continue to guarantee security of supply of electricity in support of economic growth. Now, we have to wait and see that and find out if there's going to be any rolling blackouts. South African Taxi, or SA Taxi rather, South Africa's leading specialist financial services provider to the taxi industry, has launched 2 insurance products: Kusela Taxi Insurance and Kusela Taxi Business Insurance. The products are aimed at helping operators improve the safety of their taxis, protect their business operations, and earn extra revenue. Now, to tell us more about this, we are joined by the head of sales in insurance at Kusela, Maroba Maduma. Now, good morning to you and welcome to AM News, Maroba.
Good morning, Elvis. Thank you very much for having me in.
Now, this sounds exciting. Is this a first for South Africa?
Well, definitely in terms of innovation, it is a first for South Africa. There are other insurance companies, we do have competitors, but from an innovation point of view, we can definitely say we're at the forefront.
What are we talking about innovation?
Well, in terms of product, I mean, we've been in the market as a finance house for many years, so we've gotten to interact with the associations and with the operators on a day-to-day basis. I mean, just yesterday I was sitting with a Ekurhuleni executive, getting to know a little bit more about what they need, you know, and because of that we were able to then design a product specifically aimed at not only helping them ensure their assets, but also create a more stable business environment for them, which is why I say that that's part of the innovation of it.
Okay. Now, you have two products. The one is Kusela taxi insurance and the other one is business insurance.
Yeah.
Explain the difference between the two.
It's a very subtle difference, Elvis, in that the Kusela taxi insurance is for clients that are not financed by SA Taxi Finance, where the Kusela business insurance is more for clients that are financed by SA Taxi Finance. The subtleties come in where you have some things which are optional benefits on the taxi, which are embedded within the business the business insurance.
Is it possible for the taxi industry and taxi operators to actually afford insurance?
That's what we've actually made it to become at the moment, because we understand that the cost of running a taxi business is very high. Petrol costs being up there with them, as well as obviously other running costs for the taxi. So what we've tried to do is, in both products, embed ways in which the guys can actually earn other revenue streams, helping them further actually pay for their actual running costs.
And how do they do that?
You've got a few ways. You've got this Kusela cashback, which you can earn. That's one of the innovations, by the way. You can earn it from month one after you activate. All you have to do is just activate it, and we give you 10% of your actual monthly installment back into your pocket, so that you can actually obviously then pay less, if you know what I mean. And then the second of the benefits then being the media moolah. The media moolah is where we allow our clients to actually advertise within their taxis, and we pay them a monthly amount for the term of that contract. All they need to do is qualify for it, be on a specific route, and if there's interest, then we put them in there.
Now, tell us about the involvement of the country's top taxi insurances, such as brokers such as Scotfin, Fenshaw, and TaxSure, I think.
TaxSure. So we have two ways in which we avail ourselves to our clients. We have a direct model where they can call us or walk into any of our branches.
Cut out the middleman.
Not necessarily. We don't actually just cut out the middleman, which is where the brokers come in. That's the second one. Some clients do prefer to deal through a broker, and they want that one-on-one interaction with the broker. So that's where these brokerages come in. So the ones that we have at the moment started dealing with are the ones that you mentioned, which is TaxSure, Venshaw, and Scotfin, who are then allowed to then sell our product to the market.
Now, it also indicated in your press briefing that the Kusela tax insurance will help improve the safety of taxis on the road. How does that help?
That is actually one of the ways in which we again say it's innovative, because we understand, 15 million commuters use taxis on a daily basis, so we want to ensure that the nation is moving forward and not moving into graveyards, you know. So what we've done is we've designed our cashback benefit as well as our other benefits in such a way that they are safety related. So you actually have to take your vehicle in for a safety check, which is free. So we make sure that the taxi itself is in running condition. Also, from a claims point of view, I'm sure my colleagues are going to be very happy that I mentioned this. From a claims point of view, we ensure that we obviously get the right panel beaters to do the right job to make sure that the taxis are in running condition when they get onto the road.
Now, talking about that, because a number of people are saying, you know, taxis are coffins on wheels. Do you think there is definitely a gap in the market, and is that what you've identified as such?
Look, I wouldn't say coffin on wheels per se. Look, there are those out there that don't insure their vehicles, that don't take care of them. But what we've noted is that the majority of them just honestly aren't geared towards it because they perceive insurance to be very expensive. So we've made it so that they can join in. But part of the innovation was that we want to go out and teach our colleagues in the market more about the insurance industry, more about how to better make sure that their vehicles aren't perceived in such a bad way. They can't be coffins if they're driving the nation as they are at the moment, you know.
So now, who is eligible for this insurance? All taxi owners?
Anybody who has a taxi that is in running condition, and whether it be financed by us or financed by any other bank, or even not financed at all.
So, and if you can give us an indication, ballpark figure, what are we talking about, that insurance premium per month?
Again, it's very difficult to tell because, it depends on the province, it depends on anywhere else. But I can definitely tell you that we are very, very competitive.
But competitive meaning what? 50 Rand, 100 Rand, 200 Rand? What does it say?
Well, look, I can tell you we've got clients who pay 750 Rand depending on their risk profile, and we've got clients that pay about 1,600. On average, I would say we're around about 1,500, 1,600 Rand.
How many clients have you got signed up as yet?
Well, we're sitting at the moment on just over 17,000 of the market, and we're obviously still going very, very strong.
How big is the market, though? Is there still
There's still a lot of growth. There's still a lot of growth. I'm talking about now, we have just the finance side of things, looking at about 80,000 finance vehicles out there, not finance per se, but insured vehicles out there. Obviously, the market leader having the majority of that share, but there's still a huge amount of taxis out there that haven't been insured properly, and that's what we're gearing ourselves to do.
Taxi owners, taxi operators, anybody that owns a taxi right now, whether it is a 16-seater or a 2-seater, how do they get hold of you?
Perfectly so. Either if you're dealing with any one of the brokers we've mentioned now, please go to your broker and actually let them know that you're interested in actually joining Kusela Taxi or Kusela Business. Otherwise, call us directly on 0800 214 790.
Can you repeat?
0800 214 790.
790.
Yes, my boss is going to be very happy I remembered that.
And is there a website perhaps that people can help with?
Absolutely. You can go into our website, which is www.sataxi.co.za.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time, Maroba, for joining us here on AM Live.
Thank you very much.
Good luck. I think it's a very innovative product.
We appreciate the time.
Thank you so much. That was Maroba Maduma, the head of sales in insurance at Kusela. And of course, you can contact them at 0800 214 790 or www.taxisa.co.za. Now, that's your business news for now. Still ahead. More than 200 people have died from the Ebola virus in Guinea, making it one of the worst ever outbreaks of the disease.
SABC, sharing 20 years of inspiration.
Zoom into Africa. This is Senegal. The president is Mr. Macky Sall. Senegal withdrew from the Mali Federation on 20 August in 1960. The population is more than 13 million people. One of the major languages spoken is French. Monetary unit is CFA.
Welcome back to AM News. Now let's take a look at your top stories this morning. Mpumalanga traffic authorities are trying to clear the road on which 10 people were burned to death in a fatal accident involving a bus, a truck and a car last night. 35 people were injured, 5 of them critically. The accident happened on the R40 road to the Kruger National Park between White River and Hazy View. The inquiry into the IEC chairperson Pansy Tlakula's fitness to hold office is expected to continue in the electoral court sitting in the South Gauteng High Court in Johannesburg. Tlakula is fighting against an application by some opposition parties to have her resign her position. The party's bid followed a forensic investigation by the Treasury, which found that the procurement of the IEC's headquarters in Centurion had been irregular. And trade union AMCU has stressed that no new offer has been put on the table as wage negotiations continue. Minister Ramatlhodi will today continue to engage platinum producers after the parties failed to reach an agreement yesterday. Representatives of platinum producers Implats, Amplats, Lonman, as well as other stakeholders will again be locked in a meeting with him in Pretoria. AMCU President Joseph Matunjwa will continue as well. Now, mothers of the girls who were abducted by the Islamist group Boko Haram says the government is not doing enough to find the daughters. The girls were snatched from the remote northeastern village of Chibok near the Cameroon border on April the 14th. Meanwhile, Boko Haram militants are taking over villages in northeastern Nigeria, killing and terrorizing civilians and political leaders. Those are some of your headlines. The World Health Organization says more than 200 people have died from the Ebola virus in Guinea, making it one of the worst ever outbreaks of the disease. The UN Health Agency says 21 deaths have been registered between May the 29th and June the 1st alone. Medical charities say one reason for the increase is that some people are refusing to go to hospital for treatment, preferring to seek help from traditional healers.
The World Health Organization says at least 21 people died and 37 new cases of suspected Ebola were recorded in Guinea between May 29 and June 1st, undermining the government's claims that the number of Ebola deaths was slowing. The new figures take to 328 the number of cases linked to the disease in Guinea, of which 193 have been confirmed by laboratory tests. In total, 208 deaths have been linked to Ebola, making the outbreak one of the deadliest for years. More than half of the new deaths in Guinea were in the southern region of Gukedu, epicenter of the outbreak, which began in February near the Sierra Leone and Liberian borders. The town is known for its weekly market, which attracts traders from the region as well as from neighboring countries. Sierra Leone recorded 3 confirmed and 10 suspected new cases over the same period, highlighting the threat of the disease taking hold elsewhere in the region. On the 24th of April, Guinea's health ministry said in a statement that the situation was under control thanks to measures taken by the government and its partners. There's no vaccine or cure for Ebola, a hemorrhagic fever with a fatality rate of up to 90%.
Syrian authorities say Bashar al-Assad has been re-elected president with almost 89% of the vote. The election was held in the midst of a civil war, and only people in government-controlled areas were able to take part. The Syrian opposition boycotted the election, calling it a farce. But the government says the turnout had been about 73%.
Assad supporters are making noise in the streets. They're celebrating Bashar al-Assad winning Syria's presidential election and securing a 3rd term in office.
I declare the victory of Dr. Bashar Hafez al-Assad as president of the Syrian Arab Republic with an absolute majority of the votes cast in the election.
The parliamentary speaker said Assad secured 88.7% of the votes. This as new amateur video emerges, purporting to show children carried from damaged buildings in Aleppo after a bombing. While in Damascus, celebratory gunfire and fireworks erupted before the results were even announced. Authorities said 3 people were killed and 10 were wounded. Assad's opponent said that no credible poll could be held in the midst of a conflict that has killed 160,000 people.
Meanwhile, the 6.5 million people displaced inside Syria represents approximately 20% of the total number of people internally displaced by conflict across the world. Now, the figure was released by the UN's Emergency Relief Coordinator. Valerie Amos also complained that a comprehensive directive issued by the Security Council regarding humanitarian access to Syria is not being implemented by parties on the ground.
The February resolution has not delivered on its humanitarian promises. As a plethora of armed groups and government forces battle each other in a war that is unlikely to produce any winners.
I hope that they can continue to work together despite their political differences, that they can continue to come together on humanitarian issues.
Council members led by Australia, Luxembourg and Jordan are pushing a follow-up resolution on cross-border access under Chapter 7, which would be legally binding and enforceable through economic sanctions or military action. But Russia has already indicated it won't support the text in its current form. Amos says there's a number of issues Council must address that go well beyond cross-border access.
We need to address the flagrant violations of international humanitarian law that are continuing inside Syria. I do not have an easy answer as to how we address those. We have to address the major operational requirements that we have to be able to move around freely and securely.
Sherwin Brightsby's SABC News, New York.
The world's leading industrialized nations met without Russia for the first time in 17 years. But the question is, will the snub have any impact on President Vladimir Putin and the crisis in Ukraine?
The message couldn't be clearer from Barack Obama and the West. The American president's meeting with Petro Poroshenko was not just a show of support for Ukraine's president-elect, it was also a warning.
It's important for the international community
to stand solidly behind the efforts of Petro to broker with the Russians a process whereby Russia no longer is financing or supporting or arming separatists on Ukraine's sovereign territory.
It's a message being echoed in Brussels too, where Japan's Shinzo Abe was the first to arrive for a meeting between G7 nations. There were supposed to be 8. Russia was left out in retaliation for seizing Crimea. It's the first time in 17 years that Russia's been excluded from talks on this level. Sarah Hewen from Standard Chartered thinks it will have an impact.
It sends a clear message to Putin, and I think that that's important to keep the pressure on Russia in this period. The new president in Ukraine, I think, has managed to at least show that there is some support, popular support, and a mandate.
Money is the issue for protesters outside the summit. For the leaders inside, though, it's energy and how to diversify supply. Almost a third of Europe's oil and gas comes from Russia. Any escalation of tensions could disrupt supply. What comes next will be a difficult balancing act. Singing the same tune is the first priority.
And that's what you call a classical protest. Iran is facing Western pressure to speed up its promised cooperation with a long-stalled UN nuclear watchdog investigation into suspected atomic bomb research by Tehran. The United States, the European Union, and others welcomed at a meeting of the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, signs that Iran has begun